Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. I am your moderator for today, Ruben Quinones, and I'm looking forward to the discussion today where we're going to be talking about the biggest digital trends in shaping 2025. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, now DeepSeek. What does this all mean? It means that we're just running at this rapid pace as marketers. We're just trying to keep up. So there's going to be five transformations that we're going to be talking about today, which is number one, the AI assisted consumer discovery process. How do brands stay visible as search evolves? Hyper personalization. Number two, hyper personalization and authenticity. How do we balance between AI driven marketing and human connections? Number three, the rise of niche communities, which is making it very fragmented. Through this fragmentation in this digital ecosystem, how do we navigate that? How do we negotiate that? Number four, privacy regulations and data strategies. With new laws that are shaping our marketing landscape, how do we navigate that as marketers? And last but not least, number five, the speed of this transformation is just amazing over the last few years. How do we adapt and how do we remain agile as brands? And how do we define success in 2025? So to help me do that, we've got two incredible experts. Um, Amsive's president or CEO, actually, Michael Coppola, on with us, and Lily Ray as well. If you guys want to say a quick hello before we dive right into it.
Everybody. Excited today. Thanks, Ruben, for the
Yeah.
setup. Great topic. Passionate about it, and glad to have Lily, join us today too and share her perspectives.
Yeah, thank you both. I'm super excited to be here. There's a lot happening in the space right now, so excited to share some of our thoughts.
Not enough, right? It seems like every day there's a new platform coming up and coming out and new strategies that we have to employ. But I'll dive right into it. And if there are questions, feel free to leave it in the chat. We're going to leave some time at the end to allow for some questions. But Mike, I'll start off with you more before we get into those transformations, really the state of digital marketing. So how do you see 2025 shaping out, with AI playing this more prevalent role? How is this changing how marketers are approaching their strategies this year?
Yeah, it's really, I think where last year was much more test and trial, right? I think this year is sort of adapt or get left behind. So it's AI is it's been an accelerant. It's an accelerant of change, but it's an accelerant, in how we go about crafting our strategies, right? Using automation, but it's also an accelerant for how we need to approach our work, right?
Right.
So a lot of, I'd say past years, we were, focused on thinking more digital first, right? It's
Hmm.
just building this almost muscle as a marketer that is like an AI first mindset, right?
Right.
And that's the kind of adaptability as a marketer that we have to cross that transform if we have not. I do see, people still struggling with that to start thinking AI first. And then when it comes to actually the strategies, right, it's less about automating it and it's more about becoming more precise with how we use it,
Right.
right? From, I'd say, when you think about the consumer behaviors, right? Using predictive analytics, marketers it just become faster at getting to the results that we want. So we've been leveraging a lot of AI at Amsive and a lot of automation for years, and we've really accelerated our ability to drill into real high intent audiences, right, that have better predictability to kind of power a lot of campaigns. And I'd say 2 years ago, it's a ton of automation and a ton of data sourcing, but not the accelerant we're seeing to actually be more predictive in those audiences in a more transparent way. So I
Right.
think that's
Right.
shaping a lot of our strategy as we go to market, but I think it's also shaping us as marketers to kind of really start thinking AI first and really with the enablement it provides.
Yeah. No. And Lily, I guess maybe same question or just What are you seeing as an introduction to this? What are you seeing in the landscape overall?
I mean, as it relates to search, I think, the big elephant in the room is obviously that people's behavior is shifting. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people are shifting towards starting their searches in different places, whether that be, obviously, I think ChatGPT is the biggest game changer right now. But of course, a lot of people are searching on TikTok first or Amazon first. And so a lot of more diversification within the space. Which is really changing the game as far as SEO is concerned. We have to really concern ourselves with where our audiences are, where they're spending their time. And as people start to use large language models more and more to answer questions, like how can we maintain visibility on those platforms?
Yeah, and I probably jumped ahead a little bit, right? Because it's really going into transformation one, right? So for the first time, and gosh, I didn't know this until recently because I feel like Google's been dominant for the last decade or so. They were always above 90%. But in Q4, for the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, Lily, they dropped below 90% market share when it came to search. And maybe we can start off with that. And you were kind of queuing in on that with these AI assisted tools like ChatGPT or Gemini reshaping discovery, what are you seeing are some of the top strategies for ensuring that, me as a brand, not me personally, but as a brand, remains visible in this new ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big question that a lot of marketers and search marketers are really focused on this year is really understanding how these different large language models and AI tools are sourcing information and having knowledge about people and brands and places and things. And so what we're trying to kind of reverse engineer right now is how do you get mentioned in ChatGPT? How do you get mentioned in Google's AI overviews? And luckily, the answers that we're finding are that a lot of those same tactics and approaches that we've used for SEO for years seem to be pretty
Yeah.
consistent as far as getting cited in large language models. So whether that's, good website architecture, clear answers to questions throughout your content, good
Right.
messaging throughout social media platforms, structured data. There's some new discussions around things like an LLMs.txt web standards file, which would be something like robots.txt to kind of inform large language models about how to navigate through your content. But I would say right now, you know, making sure that you're everywhere and that your brand has a really consistent kind of voice and messaging throughout the different platforms because we're seeing ChatGPT, Gemini, they're sourcing information from a lot of different places, so you just want to make sure that you're visible in all those places.
So it's almost like Lily, what you would employ and utilize to surface in Google, some of that is transferable to these platforms as well, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, the more that you can get ahead of how people are searching in LLMs, because that search behavior is a little bit distinct from how people use search engines for many years, making sure that your brand is clearly answering those questions in all the places that large language models would look to answer those questions.
Right. And then just being visible in other platforms, like we've seen Reddit play a more prevalent role in search. It's just making sure that beyond the website, you've got visibility on those platforms as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. I mean, the LLMs like ChatGPT, when it's connected to the internet, actually uses like social media posts a lot. So you want to be everywhere.
Great.
Okay.
And Mike, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, or if there's any
Yeah.
examples from the agency side, that 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 we're utilizing as a brand that we're utilizing, and surfacing on AI.
Yeah, and I think what Lily said too, it's a lot of the foundation, right? It's the same strategies kind of feeding in to these models, but I think we've been through shifts before, right? This is the first
Mhm.
time Google's sort of, kind of losing overall market share, but whether it's, Amazon, sort of search behaviors, right? Where it's more about being purposeful. Like we want to be everywhere, but be purposeful in the places that really align with your customer journey. So,
Right.
we can often marketers react, right? Where Google wasn't monetizing a lot of like toilet paper searches, right? But that's happening on Amazon, right? In a very commoditized way. And that's a different sort of search behavior. And what we're seeing is that same shift to, I would say, in platform, right? Like with TikTok, right? There's a very specific type of search journey, right? That's
Mhm.
there that would need to kind of align with what my brand or my product niche is. And really, AI and our, chat bots, right? They're accelerants to a different type of access to that same foundational content.
Right.
So, for example, like I still think brands, right, will when you think about adjusting their content strategy, it still is like, what are those blocks? What are those niches like that you really need to own within that consumer journey, right? Or just going to express in different formats in different places, but be purposeful to be really, really strong in niche, right? So, if you are more of a discovery brand of sort of more broader content, places like Discover, we've
Yeah.
had a lot of success, right? Mining, using AI tools to find gaps in comparing competitive content places, where then we
Mhm.
can kind of drill in on long tail queries, right? That become really, discoverable both in Reddit and Google Discover. So I think that we're using those AI tools to kind of shape or find some of those micro niche strategies, which are still a building block of like what we were doing before. It's just accelerating our ability to kind of get to the really good answers of what's in the long tail, for example, that's successful.
Yeah, you bring up long tail and just kind of stimulated this question that I had around, you know, uh, long tail was always this thing for search. Is it even more so with AI, Lily? That's even more prevalent that we have to be more conscious of is
Yeah.
long tail search queries?
Yeah, definitely. There's a variety of different news studies that have come out about this, about how people are searching on LLMs. And for sure, the queries are much, much longer. They're much more
Right.
conversational. And I mean, in fact, they are conversations. Like, I think one of the main ways that people are using tools like ChatGPT is literally to have a conversation. So that's a brand new way of using these tools compared to what we used to do with, just Google and Bing and traditional searches. So I think it presents even more opportunities for brands to be visible, because as people are able to have those deeper conversations with large language models, it will just surface more, diverse information.
Great, great. Just to keep on pace here, we'll go to our second transformation that we're kind of observing, and it's hyper-personalization, right? So 32% of customers are more willing to spend when brands are using a customer's preferred channel for communication. And so maybe I'll kick it over to you, Mike, on the recent stat by Salesforce that talks about unifying customer data sources. That 31% of marketers feel confident about unifying customer data sources being unified. So it's still a small number, I would think, right? So it's still a challenge. So what are some of the biggest challenges that brands are facing when it comes to truly personalized customer journey and how AI can help bridge that gap?
Yeah, and yeah, it's 32% are confident, 31%, right? It's
Hmm.
so many are unconfident. I think it's because we're still dealing with a lot of fragmentation of data, right?
Right.
Data in different silos on the brand side and data from different access points. So I think this past year, when we looked at the beginning of last year, there was a lot of brands said, all right, well, we're going to invest in our foundation, right, to kind of unify our data. Right, a year later, they're still not confident in that, and I think that's the biggest challenge. Like, they may have stood up projects, but didn't understand what they actually are dealing with and some of the challenges to kind of connect those data sources. So I think what's been really great to see is like a lot of the unified customer data platforms or CDPs starting to use a little bit more AI to kind of bridge that gap,
Right.
um, to connect all those data points to have like a universal view of what my customers' behaviors, browsing history is. And that's been really effective. And that's sort of the basis of now I can kind of personalize my messaging more. I can create more personalized messaging because I feel more confident in the underlying data. So I think we're still, as an industry, struggling with the fragmentation of the data and the unification. And
Yeah.
although projects started, a lot of them haven't been so successful, right? To
Yeah.
kind of get there. So there's ways to kind of bridge it a little bit with sort of the next gen of CDPs. And we see it in action, like just putting sort of purchase history, with browsing data together, um, for e-commerce is to deploy email campaigns. We're seeing double engagement rates by
Right.
just tapping into one more data source that wasn't available, before in someone's structured data. So the more we can pull it together, I think the more, our response rates, let's say in channels like email, are just going to get better and better.
Right. And as obviously as we continue to adapt, you're going to be leaning on AI a bit more and more, but then that kind of potentially deteriorates the consumer personal journey, right? Or how you connect with them, and how you're authentic. So, consumers are just
Yeah.
overwhelmed, right? They're wanting or they're craving authenticity. Lily, what do you think are some practical steps that brands can take to kind of balance between hyper personalization, leveraging AI for that, and then but also making sure they're balancing it with a genuine connection?
Yeah, I mean, I think something we've seen a lot of in the last couple of years is that brands have gotten really excited about using AI and automation is sometimes almost like overusing it to a fault. So I think
Yeah.
the key is to balance automation with real human insights, real authentic human discussions and expert insights. And I would say also like where we're going, at least in the SEO space in 2025, is that less is more. I think a lot of brands had a tendency early on to use these tools to scale a lot of content, a lot of maybe generic content with AI very quickly. But we're starting to see with different algorithm updates and also just consumer behavior that people don't love that all the time. They want to
Yeah.
feel something that's a lot more authentic. They want to feel like it really came from the brand. It has real human insights, real expert insights, real first party data. So I think making sure that, you're leveraging AI and automation where it makes sense to do that, but while you can kind of manage that authentic brand voice, those real, conveying the real consistent brand values that you've had, and also just making sure that you're incorporating real human discussions and conversations into the content whenever possible.
Right. So
Yeah.
let's not get rid of the humans right away, right?
Yeah. And
There was
it's
that recent
also,
article with the CEO that was kind of like,
yeah.
touting, hey, I cut down my workforce. But I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, it's just also like a reminder that there's a importance of the brand. And I'm seeing that in some of the new opportunities that we get to sort of pitch or be part of. I can almost see the shift of, the need to personalize more, the need to use AI, but then just, and maybe it's just happens to be recently, just all of a sudden the brand kind of coming back in center. The brand matters so
Mhm.
much. And just because you can do these things, right, you shouldn't do them unless you do them with purpose and you have a
Mhm.
way to kind of keep your brand authentic or at least have proper guidance from the brand so it still resonates. So I think marketers, as fast as we are moving, are also saying, hey, the brand we have to measure everything against what does our brand identity stand for. So
Right.
I'm seeing it in new RFPs coming across, like, more brands being more vocal about protect my brand. If you're a performance marketing agency, like I just don't want to personalize and scale, with the chance of losing who I am. For
Right.
simple
And
terms.
and am I correct if I'm wrong? We're also seeing, how do you use AI as well as an agency, right? So
Oh, yeah,
there's
yeah,
a there's an ask between, yes, protect my brand, but I want to get, want to peek under your hood on how your agency is utilizing AI, as well. Okay.
yeah. In different industries with different perspectives on that, Ruben, right? Some
Hmm.
of it is we're just not there in certain industries, and we're still concerned about, what using AI or how your organization uses AI, right? Is that going to uh, give me challenges with compliance or security, right? Or others are actually really looking to say, well, how can I take advantage, right, of what you're doing to be more efficient, to do more things, to make a bigger impact, to either drive efficiency, right, or which sometimes means costs, and can you do more with less, or two, It's just performance. Can we improve? So I see that being asked like in probably all three ways, and we can speculate, right? What's the future of that? But I think it's more of those same three things, right? How much more value can you provide me as a partner, as an agency, right? What can I tap into that you're doing? Two, can you make it drive performance? But three, can you also keep me safe?
Yeah, no, that's interesting, right? It's like brands realize that we have to adapt to it. So I don't think there's resistance on it,
No.
but
Yeah.
balancing it with brand safety is key, obviously. Yeah. Okay. So we'll hit on, and I think we hit on this before, but that'll lead us to kind of like data fragmentation, right? So this is what we quoted before, the 31% of marketers are fully satisfied with their ability to unify customer data sources. So with fragmentation playing this more prevalent role, how do we double down on it? So Lily, search continues to be or grow to be more specialized with algorithms changing and user intent rapidly evolving. What are some SEO tactics that brands should focus on to kind of make sure that they're relevant across these fragmented platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned specialization. I think that's really key in
Hmm.
2025. SEO for a long time was often synonymous with Google. We would just use Google and SEO synonymously, but that's not necessarily the case anymore. I think there's lots of different organic platforms where people can be discovering brands and searching for content and searching for questions and answers. So I think meeting users wherever they are, whether that be TikTok or forums or Reddit or WhatsApp, like these are all potential organic marketing channels. So just like understanding how those different algorithms work, understand what's trending on those different platforms. And I think one thing that's been really effective for our clients on the SEO team is that our team has specialists in different platforms in different areas. So like we have some people that are super focused on TikTok. We have some people that are really expert in YouTube. We have a local SEO mini team, very focused on local SEO, and just having that specialization and different subject matter expertise in all the different organic platforms is essential in 2025.
Yeah. And if you kind of had to maybe prioritize where we're focusing our time more, I assume it's still Google, right? But below that, like where does AI play a role? I know it's starting to trickle in with traffic, right? We'll see
Yeah.
ChatGPT referrals, but it's at Google, and then within the Google ecosystem, Google Discover, right? Where do you feel like we're leaning in more because that's where the traffic is?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on the category of
Yeah.
website that we're working on. So obviously, if it's a small brick and mortar business, we're focused primarily on local SEO. But if it's a much more informational type of client, we're going to be thinking a lot about the different AI tools and
Yeah.
large language models. And Google Discover for certain publishers that have more of that kind of engaging type of content. So depending on what the publisher or what the site's needs are, and they might show up in different places in different ways, but of course, making sure we're checking all the boxes so we can be visible on all the different platforms where it makes sense for the client.
Yeah. No, totally makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind
My
of having a strategy versus having a bunch of tactics, right?
Right.
Where it goes back to like, you know, understanding that purchase journey, right? And where, the points of interception are going to be based on our content, on our purpose, right? So
Right.
it's, search, it's your search presence, your sort of overall digital presence or web presence, but where's your discovery presence, right? It could be different than where your high intent presence is, right? So it shifts universally.
Right. Yeah. Um, so I think, and we talked about data before, Mike. So, just integrating that data is just continues to be this key challenge, for marketers. Is there an example that we could just talk through as far as unified data strategy that we've kind of helped the client kind of or succeed across multiple platforms?
Yeah, probably it's several, but I'm thinking there's unifying data sometimes within different like different platforms, right?
Right.
That we have, but there's also like unifying data from offline platforms, and I find
Hmm.
that sometimes can be a tremendous boost to online results. Like there's a in the CPG space, there's a lot of, retail, right, data that can kind of be pulled in, and whether you have access to SKU level data or store level data. There's one retailer, CPG, that we work with, which we were able to extract really good, right, point of sale data and retail data, kind of unified that with our uh, universal sort of customer profile, and then kind
Hmm.
of use that data to really build online audiences based on intent to kind of fuel their e-commerce strategy. And it was vastly different than when we were just aggregating our online data, right? That sort of propelled this particular CPG brand to really just enormous gains, obviously ROAS metrics, but to kind of get into that top 1% of sort of Shopify stores, based on launch, right? And if we didn't unify that offline data, we'd probably be kind of mulling around too much with the data that we had, access to through
Hmm.
our e-commerce ecosystem, and we wouldn't have been able to accelerate it much. That stands out as like just think offline too, right? Whether it's point of sale data, retail data, right, physical traffic data, right? There's a lot of data sources, but if you can unify it into a first party data identity, right, that's where a lot of the magic happens.
Yeah, and I guess with this, right, and talking about kind of doubling down on fragmentation. Um, and it's an impromptu question, Lily, but how do we report on success on that, or do we, right? Or do we just focus on kind of like the top three platforms? But are we starting to integrate reporting around AI and how that's playing a role, or some of these smaller platforms?
Yeah. I mean, it's still early days, but definitely our team is very focused on being able to report on these changes.
Hmm.
We're putting together some new reporting around traffic referrers coming from different large language models. So I think there's a lot of new studies recently coming out that show that traffic or referrers from ChatGPT in particular are really growing. So we're reporting on that with our clients to just get an understanding of not only which platforms they're being mentioned in, whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude, but also like which content, which articles on their sites are receiving the most traffic from AI. So we can kind of deduce like what are people searching for in the large language models that's leading them to find our content.
That's interesting because I would just think, oh, we're just reporting out on referring traffic, right? But being able to provide another dimension on the type of content that is being elevated in these platforms is
Right.
probably even more important,
Definitely.
right? Because you can build on that. Interesting.
And,
Um,
and Lily,
yeah.
is what also kind of made me think about is like the type of data that you get when you look at the referrers and you look at like you mentioned before, like a stronger or a different type of long tail. It also unlocks other insights to kind of isolate that data around like what that purchase decision or that discovery journey is, right?
Yeah.
Different intent signals that weren't really available in the more shorter, other earlier traditional search. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to kind of see that, and could be voice enabled or could be just the method in which we're just interacting differently with these models that give us like really interesting data around more of the decision or more of the what's important, right, in that sort of discovery journey that's going
Hmm.
on.
Mike, you said unlocked. I wonder if you chat GPT that because that's such a chat GPT
Is it
word.
unlock?
Unlocked, yeah.
Unlock?
Think I saw a LinkedIn post where like the most used terms is unlocked, delve, and some of these other ones. I'm
Yeah,
like, I think I saw those words before AI came
yeah.
aboard, but
Well,
go figure.
I find like doing it yourself, right? Being like I always try as a marketer. I just find one of the hardest things as a marketer is when you're in a brand every day, right?
Hmm.
Is to actually which is your job, is to actually
Yeah.
think, right? Like you're a consumer. And we get into
Yeah.
these traps of thinking everybody, it's the hard part, has the same sort of discovery or the same way they go about it. So I experiment a lot. I use tools just to sort of be someone not, how would someone not like myself search? And sometimes, it's asking questions. So I have, younger kids, and my son has some challenges with typing and writing, that are developmental, right? And I've learned everything is voice, and I watch that interaction, and then I sort of repeat that, and I say, wow, it's a really different kind of customer journey experience that me as an individual normally wouldn't do, right? And
Yeah.
it kind of unlocks, sorry to use the word, but a lot of different thinking, right? Of how to approach
Mm.
a strategy or how to address content. So it's just be different, try,
But
test, trial, be the consumer.
it's funny. That kind of ties back into, again, we're talking about fragmentation, but it goes back to the long tail. You mentioned voice, right? It's like I noticed my daughter is not even, she can't type like we all type, right? They're
Yeah.
just used to, it's like, why? And you're right. Probably you're not
Why?
gonna have a keyboard in 10 years. Why?
Yeah.
Right. So you're probably talking through, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lily, but I would assume that actually um, that would mean doubling down on these long tail search queries because they're more conversational
Right.
rather than you typing it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks to the larger trend of moving away from keyword obsessiveness, which,
Yeah.
the SEO
Yeah.
industry is really focused on keywords for 25 years and moving more towards conversational search. So to your point, it's addressing every possible concern and question that searchers might have in that kind of conversational format and in a way that large language models can clearly understand, where the question is being answered within your content.
Yeah. When you said the keyword upset, I mean, it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Like I think back years ago, how we would obsess, our clients would obsess, and there are still, marketers are focused too heavily on that, in my opinion,
Yeah.
right? It's, um, the other day, a friend, right? Sometimes when you're in this industry, your friends call you, he's a small business owner, and, asked me a question, and I just went back, years. He's like, how do I show up for this? Right.
Yeah.
I'm like,
How
you
do
have
I
a local
unlock?
restaurant in a tourist town. Don't worry about it. You should be focused on these other platforms
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are going to be more important for your discovery of, an independent restaurant in a
Yeah.
tourist town. Like,
Yeah. And I think like the tools themselves are changing and evolving as well, because for, 25 years in the SEO space, we've looked at rank tracking. We've looked at how you position for individual keywords people might be searching for, but that's all changing so much just
yeah,
based on how people are searching, how the search results have changed, the fact that they're starting their searches in different tools. So the industry is evolving and needs to evolve to better represent how brands are appearing.
Good stuff. All right. Not to do a strong pivot, but we'll go to transformation number four, which is more about privacy regulations. You talked about brand safety, Mike, right? So there's 8 states, including, of course, California and Texas. They'll see privacy laws take effect in 2025. So let's talk about that a little bit, Mike. I think with these states introducing these new privacy laws, how should marketers kind of rethink their first party data strategies or just data
yeah,
strategies in general to stay
yeah. Just
compliant and competitive?
yeah. I think it's you can't stop certain economics. You can't stop certain um, social sort of changes, and I just think the push for stronger privacy is just going to continue, right? As there is so much access to data, right? So we really comes back to, like you said, Ruben, it's like we need a foundation of our own first party data, and that should be the focus, right? Versus chasing like the next sort of um, third party data access source. Like you got to balance that, right?
Mhm.
We need to look at, what is my data collection process look like? Can I condense that data, right? What should I do to collect better first-party data, right? What's the incentive? What's the value? And, you'll see like better loyalty programs for brands, like getting smarter, like better um, physical on-site collection to online. Um, just what's the exchange of that data mean for me to collect if I can't transact, right? So I think the focus should be on building that trust, right, with the consumer, that they can maintain your first party data, right? And then there's a benefit for that. And that can get us smarter as marketers. So it should be just continuing to kind of work against our own data silos, aggregate, unify that data, but amass and build a really good first party strategy to collect it, but then know how am I going to use that? And I think those are two different things, right?
And then, how stronger that first party data is, the more we can maybe potentially create models around it outside of the platforms as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like I don't want to we spent years of just sort of giving, like, I just trust XYZ platform that, they're gonna be able to create some black box, sort of lookalike model, and th those work fine. But did we really know, what were the drivers? Did we really learn? Did we take away from something other than a reliance on a tactic that a platform offered? Now, if we have our own data and we do those same behaviors, creating predictive models, creating lookalikes, and then we calibrate those with different intent signals, then we start to really learn, and then we can apply that to other marketing channels or other marketing strategies that we do. So it should be all about building that first party data and then using that data in a strategy, right? That often automation and AI sort of assists in that, but that we have transparency to it, so we know what works and doesn't work. So we can,
Right.
and I think that's where marketers need to focus their time. And sometimes they need to get help. They need to, use it. Obviously Amsive's big audience, partner. We do a ton of modeling and a ton of predictive modeling and even just segmentation strategies. But there's many places to get a good audience partner to help with that if we don't feel confident, right, as marketers, to have a really good first party data strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, Lily, does this affect SEO at all? These privacy regulations, and if so, how do we navigate that?
Yeah. Well, for better or worse, the SEO industry has had almost this same type of challenge for many years. We haven't had 100% visibility into,
Right.
let's say, like keyword searches in Google Analytics, like that was removed or redacted many years ago. So, and a lot of our traffic gets grouped into the same, bucket of direct traffic and analytics tools and things like this. So this isn't necessarily like a new challenge for people that work in the SEO space, but I think because there's less visibility into what did people search for that brought them directly to my site, it's going to become increasingly important to think about like audience research and just making sure that our organic efforts are reaching consumers no matter where they are. So whether that's creating different customer segmentation or kind of like grouping our intended audience into different
Yeah.
groups and understanding, this group might spend time with these listening to these podcasts. This one might be spending a lot of time on different YouTube channels, and who are those YouTube influencers, and who are those podcasters, and who are what are the Reddit threads where people spend their time, and just making sure we're diversifying all the different places where people might be, seeing your brand or asking those types of questions. That's
Hmm.
going to become increasingly important. So we're not just laser focused on like what's the specific keyword that they typed into a search engine.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's a good tip for navigating that as well. So basically, better data collection and better grouping
Yeah.
and segmenting of your keyword
Segmentation
groups.
is the
Hmm.
foundation of like that content block strategy, where, what channels, right? Um, but yeah, I totally see that as it's just an opportunity, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll go to number 5. Change will only happen faster. Speed equals trust. Speed is now a requirement of trust in the workplace. I guess that's from Ad Age. I don't know if it was worth sharing the screen on that one. It's just one sentence, but um, for not to make myself feel old, but Mike, you remember
You're old.
the ISP world, the wars, the browser wars, the search wars, social wars, but nothing quite feels like what we're going through now with AI. I mean, just like every single week, some new platform is doing it better and cheaper, right? What does that mean for us as marketers? So much change happening, right? So speed obviously is important. It's more of a defining factor for trust. What should businesses expect, Mike, from their marketing partners to kind of make sure that they're keeping up this pace, right? So we talked about, we're getting asked whether we're using AI. How do we demonstrate the value that, hey, we are, and this is how we're utilizing? How do we instill confidence in that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about like your ability as a partner to be agile, right?
Hmm.
And to be able to quickly adopt, right? Whether it's being able to pivot based on what you're seeing, right? Within some of the results that we're getting. So you
Hmm.
have to be agile, less rigid, right? The idea of like planned marketing campaigns are still critically important, right? On a large level, but you have to be agile within the campaigns to take advantage, right? Of whether it's something in the data that we're seeing, or response data, or there's some emerging trend, that we want to focus on quickly from a content perspective because everything happens more rapidly today. So you need that agility in a partner. And clients also need to be agile in the thinking too, right? To be adapt
Hmm.
to change. Um, and I think that's what creates that healthy partnership, right? We're not going to be able to do everything, but can we be agile, move quickly, and adapt with some independence, right? Within the campaign structure and the guidelines, and feel our partners feel comfortable that we're operating within the best interest of the brand, while also on a higher level being more agile and flexible to shifts in how we want to kind of change our more strategic approach to the marketing channels that your partners work in. So I think
Yeah,
agility is everything, right? If you're going to
yeah,
use predictive analytics, you have to be able to actually, act on it, pretty quickly. Otherwise,
right.
yeah, you miss the opportunity.
So basically, nothing changes for us. We're gonna still be up 24/7 managing campaigns, right? But now with AI providing a lens to it, right?
Yeah, but I think that flexibility or the autonomy, right, is
Hmm.
there's other agencies that are on here, and they probably it's being able to get the right amount of autonomy in the partners that we work with, and some of us have many agency partners for different functions. Um, is important, but you want them to be agile and have the flexibility in the things that they're actually really good at doing, right?
Yeah. Question
That's
just I just thought of, Mike, is it a mistake for a brand to work with an agency that has not embraced AI or is just resistant to it?
uh, would well mistake,
Not
yes,
mistake, but
but
yeah.
maybe I think AI could not just allows us to do things we're talking about now, like move faster,
Hmm.
personalize at scale, but it's actually also used in sort of the strategic process too, right? To kind of move faster, to challenge thinking. So it goes back to that. I think there needs to be, it's a mistake to not have an AI first mindset in parts of what we do, right?
Hmm.
In any partner. But you don't
Right.
want to just only be focused on the outputs of AI without really human interaction and
Oversight. Yeah.
oversight.
Yeah.
That's a mistake too.
Yeah. And then Lily, I guess on the flip side, searched updates are always, it seems like they're rolling out faster than ever. Tell me if
Yeah.
that's true or not. So how can a brand kind of future-proof what they're doing and their strategies and make sure that they stay ahead of competitors?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I think the fundamentals of what we do in the search marketing space, like those are pretty much staying the same,
Right.
despite the fact
Yeah.
that everything, the look and feel of how the search results in LLMs are kind of changing day to day. That all obviously changes very quickly, but I think the first thing is that you want to develop systems to be able to stay informed about what's changing and how that affects whether it's your clients or your business, because it's true that AI is changing and evolving every day. And so it's important to stay on top of what's changing and how it impacts your brand. So, our team has frequent meetings. We meet every day, in fact, to talk about these developments. And we also have like an AI task force. So we're really focused on a lot of these big changes. That's helping us stay updated. But I would say, as far as like approaching search and SEO and how that kind of changes over time, fundamentals are not too different. But I will say, familiarize yourself with the different like guidelines and spam
Yeah.
policies and manual actions that these search engines have. Because, for example, like ChatGPT leverages the Bing index for, citing brands. So you want to make sure that you're compliant with what Bing recommends for SEO. And Google is definitely cracking down more and more on violations of its guidelines. So making sure that the SEO approach that maybe a consultant might have pitched to you that feels too good to be true and is going to be scaling content really quickly with AI or whatever it is, that could potentially run afoul with what Google recommends as far as quality. So just making sure that you're familiar with what are kind of like in the rules and outside of the rules of SEO, making sure you stay within the guidelines.
Right. So there's moving fast, right, to stay and be agile with all of this, but at the same time, don't go to the other extreme, the other spectrum of like, oh, we're going to chat GPT all our content now and
Yeah.
Right.
go crazy because we've seen it actually backfire.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
think we've
that,
inherited accounts that have come
yeah.
in as a result of that, right?
Yeah,
Usually we see the
absolutely.
best coming in. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's hard to fix the problem once the problem's already been like caught by the search engines, but
Yes.
definitely be careful about scaling too quickly with AI.
Mike,
Yeah,
you
and
ready to
that's
say
like,
something?
yeah, and that's kind of like you said, like the foundation, um, it hasn't changed, but that's also been around for a long time too. It's like just chasing the short-term strategy. It's
Right.
just if it's too good to be true, right? It's probably not. Like if you're focused on more sustainable, like business measures, more long term, like that kind of hasn't changed either.
Yeah,
It's just more distractions, more challenges, more problems. Like, so you do need to be familiar with ultimately where it's going is going to be similar to how search is sort of evolved, right? And sort of
yeah,
being all about value for the consumer, right?
definitely.
Yeah.
So I think before we go to questions, one last question for you guys is, as we look towards the rest of 2025, I can't believe it's February already. What's the one piece of advice that you would give marketers to not just keep up with, but really to kind of get ahead of, just this transformation that we're going through in 2025? If it was going to be one thing, I know Mike, you'll probably say unlocked or unlock this or that. But what parting thoughts can you give us around that?
Yeah, I would say if it's one thing, right? It's probably one thing that is it means something in two different ways, and I think it's focus, right? So one is focus on there's a lot of distraction, there's a lot of emerging as things accelerate and move fast. We do want to have some test and trial and flexibility, but we do need to focus, right, on strategies that we can see all the way through as marketers, right? Two is if we were to focus in any one area, it would be focusing on really making decisions around like what is our best customers in mind, right? Not just a land grab for for traffic, right? Or an accelerant, but like, can we put our customers at the center of decisions we make? So I would be focused on using AI to build, right, really good customer models that I can use to anchor or activate media channels or activate really good segmentation strategies for content. So I'd say it's focus on our customers, knowing our customers, and then building really strong audiences that we can activate, um, using some of the predictive analytics or modeling automation that's available. And it's
Nice.
something, we definitely have seen as a huge impact, right, across client performance is when we do focus the right amount of time up front to do that well.
Nice. Lily, how about you?
Yeah, I think kind of like a lot of what we talked about today, but finding that delicate balance between automation and AI and using those tools to create efficiencies while maintaining that true, authentic brand voice and making
Yeah.
sure that you're not over relying on these tools because it can be really easy and really tempting to say, oh, this can be automated with AI. We can just kind of like not use these processes that we've had in place for a long time that have proven to be very effective and just kind of replace it all with AI. And then you lose that humanity and you lose that brand voice. And customers can tell, right? Searchers can tell. So I think it's really important to find that balance where you're creating efficiencies with automation, but you're also staying true to your brand voice and making sure that as far as like SEO is concerned and search is concerned, you're continuing to provide value and not just doing things because you feel like you're going to win at SEO, but doing them because you're really providing value to the searcher and creating helpful content. That's going to
Yeah.
be key in 2025 for sure.
And Lily, as a marketer, obviously I know the go-tos for, SEO, but, it's SEO Journal, Moz, right? So what do you do to keep ahead as a marketer?
It's a full-time job.
I
20,
know. Okay, I guess
24/7.
that's not.
No, I mean, so I think there's a handful of different, publications, trade publications that we follow, conferences that we attend, social media, like many different social media platforms where we follow different people that we trust. But something that's been really effective for our team is meeting literally daily. And then weekly on Mondays, we have like a nice big kind of roundtable discussion about the latest developments in this space. So that keeps us on our toes for sure.
And that's good. That's what I actually love here there's multiple Slack channels, there's meetings. So I think incorporate or thinking about integrating that into your business, whoever you are. I like to learn from a lot of other people, outside of the platforms. So with that, one of you, we have any questions? I think a voice from God was going to come in and
Hello. Yes, we
there
have
we go.
a lot of really great questions. The first question for Lily, and then we'll have a follow-up for Mike. The first question for Lily is, how will these AI changes affect your money, your life industries specifically?
Yeah, I
Good
mean, I
question.
think, yeah, so for anybody who's unfamiliar, Your Money, Your Life is an acronym that Google has in its search quality guidelines that essentially means that the content has the potential to cause harm to the user. So it might be something related to safety regulations or politics or
Mhm.
news or financial topics or legal topics or medical topics. So Google has pretty strict systems in place to determine when a search query is your money, your life. So, for example, if somebody types something related to like cancer or heart attacks, it's going to be much more stringent as far as which sites or which sources it's using to generate generative AI answers, right? So I think that we're still going to see that kind of breakdown between, you know, super authoritative companies and publications that are cited in different ways
Yeah.
as opposed to citing like a small natural wellness blog if somebody's typing something related to cancer treatment. So I think a lot of that kind of classic approach to what Google calls EEAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust, we're going to see them integrate that into AI overviews in Gemini and different LLMs.
Mhm.
And sneaking another quick one in here from the Q&A as well. So you had a recent LinkedIn post that said that local queries had been affected by the most recent changes targeting one page per city companies. Some small companies completely rely on this strategy. Otherwise, they're not able to grow their market share. So do you have any more info kind of behind your LinkedIn post for that and what your recommendations would be?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. So basically, sites that use a strategy of having, let's say, one page per city or one page per neighborhood when they don't actually have a physical store location or actually like a real service in those regions or in those cities, that could be a potential issue for search engine algorithms because companies like Google can say, hey, these pages are not authentic, right? You have a page for all these different cities despite not having real businesses in those cities. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that if you are creating regional content or localized content that you actually have service offerings or physical location in those places. If you don't, you just have to be careful because there's a lot of companies that do this in a really almost like haphazard way where the content is not unique above and beyond different location pages that search engines have seen. So if you do have those pages, just make sure that you're adding a lot of original value about what your business can offer in those different cities above and beyond some, let's say, like generic AI content about the city.
And Mike, this is one I'm interested in myself. So they're asking, what types of skills can marketing professionals develop to remain competitive as AI does transform the industry?
Yeah. What's interesting, we start to see, like when you look at, I was thinking about when you just said that, like some of the jobs that we see emerging, right? And some of these titles like a job that's focused on writing really good commands, right? Or writing, and what that really is a signal, right, is that there's a skill that needs to be developed, right, of marketers. So when you think about this AI first thinking, right, we got to get really good at just using the generative AI as marketers and know how to, if you can write really good commands, you get really good output. So I would say, like, that comes to mind right away is like we have to be really good operators, right, of technology, not necessarily developers, right? But we have to be power users, and that's a skill that is if it doesn't feel, if anyone's on here and they don't feel really comfortable, you need to immediately kind of address that, and otherwise you'll start to see these jobs, which I don't think are necessarily have staying power. It's just the adaptation of what a marketer needs to actually be able to do, right, in many different ways. So I think that being comfortable with, you know, different platforms and being agile thinkers and being flexible are behaviors, but being able to operate, right, AI or very basic generative AI tool sets is critically important skill for marketers.
And don't leave your critical thinking at the door either, right? It's like
No,
people
you
think,
actually use it to make you think more critically,
mm-hmm,
right? Otherwise,
yeah.
what's your worth, right?
Anything else, Lee?
Run
Or Voice of God, sorry.
running up on time a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
so could be good to hit the QR code. That
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, I just want to thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Lily, for joining us. And this has been a great discussion. Looking forward to some additional webinars that we'll do in the future. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm sure we'll get this up on the blog soon, along with a summary. Thank you, Mike and Lily, again, and have a good rest of your week.
Well, thanks, Ruben. Appreciate you spending time, thoughtful questions, and yeah, thanks everybody for the time.
Thanks
Thanks,
to you
Lily.
both.
Okay.